So we found this website that helps us kind of connect with each other when we're doing this virtually. It's called menti.com. So I'm going to ask everybody to go to menti.com if you have a phone or if you're on a device on Zoom. And you're going to type in this code here. So 5890 7367. And I'm going to do this too to make sure it works. 5890 7367. It says that on the slide, and it should say it here too. Yeah, on the top, you can see it there. And you're going to get a prompt to check in with yourselves. So you can enter any words that come to mind about how are you doing? How are you feeling? And we can watch. This is anonymous, so your names won't be next to your responses or anything like that. But we're just going to watch and see what's right in the room here with us and what's right on Zoom here with us. I hope the online folks can see that okay. Okay. Great. I see your responses coming in. Thanks. So I'll just give you a minute and you can watch the emotional pulse of this room come in. And the bigger the word is, the more frequent the response was. So look at that, stressed jumps out right in the middle. People are feeling tired, anxious, happy, tired of the unpredictable. Fine, content, okay, unsettled, full. Overwhelmed. I've done this, I don't know, a couple dozen times probably in the last year or so, and it's just striking how much emotion there is. Sometimes we might not really notice, like just in this room sitting here together on Zoom together, look at all the emotion that's going on. I really appreciate you all sharing. I think we often lose track of how varied our feelings are and how complex our feelings can be and how important it is to kind of take that temperature of ourselves. And I'm going to try to switch back here. So thank you for doing that. Really appreciate that. Sometimes I found this image when I was doing a presentation on grief, that the grieving just keeps piling up these last couple of years. And what you just did just now, that was emotional intelligence. So all of you thinking to yourselves, saying these words on this screen, that was your emotional intelligence. So look, congratulations, everyone here has emotional intelligence, and you have a lot of skills going already. And as we noticed on the screen, sometimes our lives can really feel like these layers of piling up, overwhelmed feelings. I know that you all have your own stories about what you're sitting with right now, many stories. And what you just did was identify those emotions that you're going through. And this is really key. It might seem like kind of a simple concept to just say, oh, I'm feeling pretty happy, I'm feeling pretty tired. But it's actually really, really important. And the research shows this, that identifying our feelings helps us to regulate what we're going through. It really is an important process for us of being able to say, okay, wow, I'm feeling so many things here. I'm feeling overwhelmed. Maybe I'm pretty content. I'm stressed. Just that process alone, the research shows that helps to offer some relief for us. And I think there's a lot of reasons why. And so we'll get into those as we go today. But we're going to talk about this notion of emotional intelligence. So this is a really broadly applied term that's used in a lot of different ways in psychology. I like to think of it as a compass, because like you just did in saying, I'm feeling pretty full, pretty overwhelmed, feeling okay. This gives us some guidance about where to go, about what to do, about how to navigate things when we're able to kind of put our finger on it and say, oh, that's what it is. The next step is we're able to then do something about it. And so that's our emotional intelligence. These are skills that we all have that you practice, whether you know it or not, that influence the way we perceive and express ourselves. So when we have words for these things, we can share it with people we trust. Helps us develop relationships, cope with our challenges, and use emotional information in a meaningful way. And so I do these assessments with people. We do mental health assessments with clergy and other people who are seeking them. But we use this model of emotional intelligence here. And look at all the colors and the words and all the different headings and stuff. There's a lot that goes into this because we're really complex beings as humans. We have a lot of nuances to us. And so there's lots of ways our emotions show up in our lives in terms of how we perceive ourselves. Like what happens when you look inward, when you just sit and take note of what's going on in your mind, in your heart, how we express ourselves to the world. We use a lot of emotional words and our facial expressions and our body language. These are all forms of self-expression. Emotions help inform our relationships and how deep and connected we feel with people. And they play a major role in how we make decisions and solve problems and in how we manage stress. So we don't have much time, so we're not going to go all the way around the wheel tonight. We're going to focus on self-awareness. If there's one more thing I can get across tonight, it's awareness, awareness, awareness. It's really all about how aware are we of what's going on inside of us. This is a really key skill. And the research shows in the leadership work that we do that this comes up all the time, that this plays into many different aspects of leadership, that we're able to identify what's going on within us. So this is the ability to name our feelings, to understand what triggers our emotions, to know our strengths and growth areas, to recognize how we work under pressure, to channel our emotions constructively. And we're going to do some practice with that tonight. And isn't it hard to pay attention to these things right now? Again, the stories that we could tell each other about what we've been through and what we've seen these last few years and more. We know about the stress in the churches, in schools, the ups and downs, the waves that you've all experienced in school. Our climate crisis going on, the grief and the death and the hurt around us, the social unrest and the racial trauma going on, just around the corner, George Floyd and Dante Wright and others. The Omicron, is that how you say it? The new variant that we just learned today. There was a case in the US. All the conflict and tension, I'm sure all of you have felt afraid and overwhelmed, maybe are right now. And so I know that it can be really hard to lean in a little bit because, of course, we're just inclined to say, I can't even go there. I don't even want to go there. It's too much. And I'm here to maybe open up a little bit of space for you tonight to say, I'm going to let a little bit of this in because our emotions are trying to tell us something. Are all emotions good or bad? What do you think? What's coming up for you when you hear this question? It's kind of a rhetorical question, I guess. So we have this tendency, I think, to say, oh, that's a good feeling. Like, of course, joy, contentment, peacefulness. Those are like, oh, I like feeling that way. And there's bad feelings out there like anger and sadness. I don't really love feeling that way, of course. But it's really more complex than this. And you know this, of course, but it really is more going on here, because sometimes those emotions that we think are bad can actually be pretty helpful and pretty good. This is a little diagram that comes from research on stress in test taking. Who's ever been stressed out about taking an exam? Maybe some of us right now more than others. I know I have many times. And this is about this notion that we need some stress in our lives. Maybe some of you have seen this before. Stress, when it's really low over here, doesn't really help us perform because we don't care. It's like, I don't really feel like getting off the couch. I don't need to study for that. That's months away. Well, if we're not feeling some stress, we might not do very well on that test because we're not motivated to prepare. So the research over and over again shows that when we have some stress, it actually helps us perform better because we're like, okay, I got to get to work on this. I got to get those flashcards out and start preparing a little bit. So some stress is good. And I think a lot of us have felt this dip here where like, it's too much. Oh, I just want to pull up the covers in the morning over my head because I can't go out in the world. And I can't deal with all that I know is coming today. And so I want you all to think for a minute about where would you put yourself on this curve right now? How much stress is going on for you, and how's that serving you? Sometimes we need some stress in our lives, but it can be too much. Emotional intelligence is having the courage to really pay attention to what's going on inside of you. We get all sorts of messages all the time about how we should or shouldn't feel. Don't worry, you'll do fine on that assignment, or you'll make it through that. That's okay. We tell ourselves, I shouldn't feel really upset about that. But really, we're feeling how we're feeling. That's just it. We have these feelings going on in us, and they're very natural. And so I want you to feel like you can have the courage to just take one step closer and say, oh, what is that anger trying to tell me? Why am I so upset about life right now? Our emotions tell us something. They have all important messages for us. When we're feeling sad, it's usually telling us that we've lost something important to us. When we're angry or upset, that can tell us that we've been treated unfairly, been wronged by something in our lives. When we're anxious, there's a threat out there. Aren't we all feeling anxious all the time? So our emotions are there to give us some important information about what's going on inside of us. And sometimes we find ourselves in patterns of feeling certain ways. Like, how often do you wake up and you just, I have a hard time, getting going. You feel really tired when you start your day, and have a hard time getting out of bed. There are certain patterns that you might notice that, I'm pretty prone to feel that way. This last few months, we've had a lot going on. I've had a lot going on at work, and I just feel drained. I think a lot of us are feeling pretty drained, and it can be hard to get moving in the morning. Or maybe you're feeling kind of, your fists are kind of clenched lately. You feel pretty upset about things or irritable. Oftentimes we have patterns of, what's on the surface for us, like what we can identify that's going on. And sometimes those are the things that we're taught to feel more often, or things that are just come naturally to us based on our life experiences. And there might be stuff going on underneath there that is especially hard to pay attention to. When I'm feeling tired in the morning, maybe it's really because I'm, scared of what I'm going to encounter in the day, or, what's going to be waiting there for me at work or at school. If I'm really angry, maybe I'm also sad about, not being able to see my friends as much as I wanted to, or, not being able to worship like we're accustomed to. And I think this can be a helpful image because, back to the first image of all those feelings coming up that we all have, sometimes we don't have the room or the space to pay attention to the iceberg, what's really looming underneath. I also wouldn't be a good psychologist if I didn't show you a feelings wheel tonight. So has anyone ever seen one of these before? I see a couple nods. Nice. Thank you for nodding. This is getting at that iceberg idea. So there are some kind of core emotions: sad, mad, joyful, glad. Those are some things that pretty readily feel. But it gets really layered when we think about it more. Each step out of the middle gets more specific. So maybe I'm feeling really joyful. I'm kind of playful. I'm feeling good and having a good time. I'm feeling kind of playful. That's actually a better word for it than joy or happiness. Or if I'm feeling mad, maybe I'm actually, skeptical of something going on. Has anyone ever thought about how those are connected? So there's just a lot of layers and a lot of words out there that can help you sit with and identify what you're going through. And this is a resource you can use, if you ever do journaling, or if you're ever looking for more words to kind of connect with yourself. You can just Google feelings wheel. They're all over the place. I wanted to have a little discussion right now about what's hard right now about leaning in. What makes it hard to look at all those words on the screen and to kind of pick one and claim it for yourself? I think there's all sorts of reasons this can be tough right now. I don't know if we could have a discussion, but I would love to try to hear from you about what makes this challenging to lean in a little bit. Just go ahead and shout it out, or if there's anybody online, we'll try to hear from you too. Mm-hmm. Sure. It feels vulnerable. That was one answer. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, we're kind of putting ourselves out there when we claim a word and say, oh, that's what it is. Mm-hmm. I just need to get my work done. I can't deal with that now. I've got too much going on. What good is it anyway to give myself that space? I've got homework to do. Yeah. Thanks. What else are people thinking? Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah. The comment was about good and bad emotions, that seeing that on there kind of fleshed it out for you a little bit, that you realized, oh yeah, there's more going on than just good and bad. And you felt pulled to say, oh, I like that. That's a good feeling. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Tired all. It's too much sometimes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. The comment was about how feelings wheels would be helpful in helping us identify what's going on. What do you imagine is helpful for you about that? Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. It's hard to come up with the words sometimes. And we know that having those words, again, is really important because it kind of unlocks a lot for us to be able to say, oh, I'm actually really lonely right now. I'm not sad. I'm more lonely. You know, it kind of helps us really connect with what's actually going on. Yeah, thanks for the comment. Yeah. I just like it because it's like a differentiation. Sometimes you don't know, so you're like, oh, that's it, right? Like I have to now have a category that I can choose some more options. So sure. I didn't know it until I saw it. Uh-huh. I didn't know it until I saw it on the page. Yep. Yeah. Sure. The question is, what does it mean to be emotionally aware? Yeah. Oh, that's a really good question. You know, one of the things we're talking about is putting a word to what you're feeling. But there's all sorts of other ways we might be emotionally aware. Maybe we'll feel our heart beating all of a sudden. Oh, what is that telling us? Or maybe we've got some tension somewhere in our bodies. Have you ever like noticed yourself and you're just kind of crouching in your chair and your posture's all bad and your shoulders hurt? I have terrible posture sometimes. What is that saying? You know, is that saying that I'm tired or stressed when I stand like this and sit like this all day? So emotionally aware can be a lot of different things, you know, paying attention to our bodies, to our minds, you know, our thoughts. How quickly are your thoughts moving? How much is your mind wandering when you're trying to focus? That can tell us a lot about our feelings. In our behaviors, you know, sometimes we cope in a lot of ways in our behavior. Maybe people are eating more or less when they're stressed, or having trouble sleeping, or acting in ways that that's not typical for them, you know, getting upset, or withdrawing from friends. You know, there's lots of ways that we might check in with our emotions there. I appreciate the question. When are people most self-aware? What helps you to like really check in with yourselves? Mm-hmm. Walking, journaling, time to yourself. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Maybe some of us are, you know, internal processors, where we journal to ourselves or go on walks or kind of sit with ourselves. Maybe some of us need a trusted friend or a parent or pastor, to be able to articulate it a little differently. I came across this image here earlier in the pandemic. It was actually about a year ago right now. And it just kind of struck me when I was preparing for this that like, I still feel that way. I still feel like life has been turned upside down sometimes. And there's this term, Kay, maybe you know this from a hospital setting, surge capacity. I had never heard of this term, but yeah, I think we can all connect with this now. This idea that when there's, you could say it better than I could probably, Kay, but when there's a crisis going on or a high need, hospitals have this crisis response where they muster all their resources together to meet the demands and surge to be able to meet the stress. And was some writing last year about how are we all feeling this way, that we keep surging and gathering our energy and pushing harder and harder just to be able to deal with the day-to-day. And the point being that we can't always operate at this level of surging. There's a reason we don't do this all the time, because it just wouldn't work. So I think this can be a helpful term sometimes in noticing, okay, this is a moment when I'm really riding this wave. I'm just pushing through, I'm just surging. I'm just trying to gather and muster all of my resources. And I can't do this all the time. Sometimes I need to just step back and realize this is not, sustainable to be able to surge. And I don't know about you, but I'm getting tired of seeing these daunting maps like this. Maybe we had some hope going into the summer about vaccines and we can finally sing together in church again. And maybe we're losing some of that hope right now. It's exhausting to see these numbers. I would be curious to hear how folks are doing with this, as we head into as we're in the Advent season and heading towards Christmas and heading into winter. How are people feeling about the next chapter of this pandemic and of our life? Yeah, the Menti, of course. Yeah. What do people think about when you look ahead to the winter? Mm-hmm. Not as hopeful as you thought you'd be. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Blaming people, feeling upset, angry with people. Yeah. I think there's a lot of grief again. We've been grieving the loss after loss that we've had. And I think we're grieving again. Maybe we had some hope and some energy. Okay, we're gonna pull through this. And here we go, another round. Losing our hope. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Uh-huh. Oh, crap. It's almost worse the second time around. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes, these are. Mm-hmm. Yeah. There was a study that came out, and there's been many done like this. That's kind of a fun idea. What they did was they gathered up a bunch of people who had a fear of spiders. They got them all together. How many people have a fear of spiders? Some of us do. Oh, there's a lot of brave people in the room. So that's in this study, they got people together that were afraid of spiders, and they brought them outside and had them, they had a live tarantula sitting outside. I know, how cruel is this? These people agreed to this study. So they're like, okay, I can do this. And they had them approach the spider, the tarantula, as much as they could. So they were told to walk closer and closer until they couldn't go any further. So if you imagine a tarantula walking around, think about how close you could get to it. Could you touch it? And then after that, they took that group of people and divided them into 4 different groups, and they brought them inside and they had them approach another tarantula inside. So now they're inside in a safe place, and they said, okay, go as close as you can to this tarantula. After that, they had one of the groups describe what they were feeling as they were doing this. So they said, label your emotions about that experience. So people said, oh, I'm terrified. You just had me touch this giant tarantula. Of course, I'm frightened, or I'm regretting joining this experiment. This is terrible. So they didn't tell that group to change anything. They just said, tell me how it felt to do that. Other groups, they said, try to make it less threatening. So tell yourself something that could make it less scary. So people said, oh, that thing can't hurt me. I'm not afraid of it. Don't worry, it's okay. You're in a safe experiment. Or they were told to do nothing at all in a different group. And the really interesting part are the results. They measured how close the participants got to the spider. So the people who labeled their emotions were able to get closer to the spider. They measured how distressed they were afterwards, just their self-report of like 0 to 10, how stressed were you? The people who labeled their feelings were less stressed about it. And they measured their physiological responses, so like how much they were sweating and like a stress response. And they had less of a stress response. So kind of a really cool study that shows, when the simple act of labeling our emotions helps us to actually feel differently about these things. And I found it so interesting how when people said, oh, it's not so bad, it's not going to hurt me, that didn't help. That didn't change anything for them. It's a good question. Yeah. Why is that? Is that something I'm aware of it? I have control over it. I can name it. What is happening? The question is, why does that help? Yeah, you had a bunch of ideas about you're aware, you're in control of it, you can name it. I don't know the answer to that. I think there's probably a lot of reasons why. Maybe something very primitive in us that feels this need to understand ourselves. I can imagine that it helps us know what's going on for us. Okay, there's a reason why my heart is beating and I feel sick to my stomach, and I just, just that act of understanding this gives some relief. And I think it gives us a kind of a roadmap for what to do next. Ownership. Yeah, you're in charge, you have control. Nice. Yeah, back to that feelings wheel. If there's a difference in how you might respond to feeling bored. When you're bored, you respond differently than when you're feeling guilty about something. It's like, oh, okay, I'm bored. I should try to find something I can do that'd be fun and engaging. So it helps us know what to do. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah. These are great, Kay. Yes. Yeah, when we fake it, there's some kind of dissonance going on within us. We're kind of lying to ourselves. And when we're saying what we're really feeling, we might be able to connect with people more. Like, I'm actually going to get to that. So that's really helpful. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I think we often have this need to be positive. Oh, I just got to push through this. I got to look on the bright side of things. And this is exactly what you're saying. This can be unhelpful because it kind of invalidates ourselves. I'm really not feeling positive, but I'm acting positive. That's kind of hard right now. And I want you to be aware of this toxic positivity. Sometimes we need to just push through. We just need to grit our teeth and put our heads down. But when we do this too much, it can have the effect of us missing out on what's really going on for us. And it can take away from our self-awareness when we're saying, I just got to be happy right now. Just try to act happy. Well, is that really going to be helpful? Sometimes that's not helpful. And it's because it invalidates us. And also it takes away our chance to connect with people when we're not being honest with ourselves or with others. I think we also fall into this trap of trying to fix things. I just got to solve this problem. I just got to fix what I'm going through right now. And sometimes that's also not very helpful. We have good reason for this. We want to maybe help people that we care about, want to help them work through a problem or help ourselves get through something. Of course, we have well-meaning intentions with this. But sometimes this can, without us maybe even knowing it, take away from our opportunity to see ourselves more clearly. And it can be, again, kind of invalidating that we're missing something here. So I want to give you permission tonight to just be a human being, to just be who you are and what you're feeling right now. We are in a global trauma, an ongoing pandemic, and we're going to have a reaction to that. Just want to give you permission to feel what you feel tonight, to grieve the losses going on, to be unproductive. Sometimes we're just unproductive. Sometimes we're overwhelmed. To not have it all together, I think there's a lot of pressure to, I gotta make sure I have it all together. And that's just not realistic right now, maybe. Permission to be uncertain, to be imperfect. You can add whatever you want to this list. Because when we have the chance to share more authentically, to your point, Kay, it really helps us to feel connected. And there's a lot of research on this concept of universality too, that sharing what's going on with us helps other people understand, oh, I'm not alone in that. I didn't really even know I was going through that until somebody said it for me. I realized that I am feeling that way too. And when we share what we're going through with others more honestly, how good does that feel when you hear someone say, this has been really tough lately? And it kind of gives you permission to say, oh, me too. This has been really hard. We all need people on our island that just get it, that just know what's going on for us. The number one factor in our resilience, according to the research in psychology, is social support. We're naturally wired to be social beings, and so we need people who understand us. So who is there in your life that who will deeply listen to you? really, really say, how are you doing actually? How does it impact you when you connect with someone? I wanted to just take a little bit of time here. I think we have a few more minutes left. Oh, go ahead. Well, part of so we've talked about self-awareness as a piece of our emotional intelligence. The next step is self-regulation. So doing something with that awareness. Okay, I've identified my emotion. Now what? What do I do with that? And I thought it might be helpful. Has anyone ever meditated or done any mindfulness exercises? See some hands? Nice. Yeah. Oh, great. A lot of people. Cool. Well, I thought we'd take an opportunity to just do a very brief, 2-minute exercise tonight, just to give you the experience of that. So let's just take a couple of minutes. Get comfortable in your chairs. Maybe some people like to put their feet on the floor and feel their feet in the floor. Kind of rest your hands on your lap in a comfortable position. Maybe in a way, don't get too comfortable that you're going to fall asleep, but somewhere where you won't shift around. And if you feel comfortable, close your eyes and just start to gently direct your attention inward towards your breath. So pay attention to your breath for a moment. And without changing anything, start to notice what your breath feels like right now. I notice the sensation of air coming in and out of your mouth or your nose. Maybe you feel your chest rising or falling. Just pay attention to your breath. Our breath is something that's always with us, and we can return to it as a focal point when we need to relax. You might notice that your mind is wandering somewhere else. That's okay. That's what our minds do. If you notice this, just take that opportunity to return to your breath. Just focus on your breathing. You might label it as a thought. Oh, I'm having this thought, or a feeling, or a physical sensation. And then just come back to your breathing. Breathing in and out. Now, start to widen your attention to your body. You might feel your back against your chair, your feet on the floor, your hands. Do you feel any tension in your body? Any relaxed sensation? Just take a moment to acknowledge what's going on with your body. And I invite you to notice your breath again. Notice how it might feel differently from when we first started this meditation. And in your own time and space, just take a few more breaths, and when you're ready, you can blink your eyes open and come back to our room today. I'm curious, what did people notice when we just took a moment there? Yeah. The comment was meditation's like exercising. Yeah. Feels calmer. Nice. Great. It's relaxing. Mhm. Yeah. Was it hard to focus for anybody? Yeah. I see lots of nods. Mhm. We have all these stimuli coming into our minds and all these thoughts taking us off all over the place. Well, that was mindfulness, and this is a simple practice that you can do to check in with your feelings and your body and yourself. Well, I see our time, and I just want to leave a few minutes for questions. I don't know what people are sitting with, or if there's any questions at this point, but we can discuss a little bit before we wrap up. Yeah. I don't know if this is quite an answerable question, but I think I've heard a lot of talk about grief, and especially collective grief in the pandemic. Just explain what that is or what that feels like, because I think there is that happening. But I sort of like the wheel, like what is grief as it goes out? Especially when we think about it collectively. Yeah. A good question. The question is about collective grief and kind of what is that, and how do we experience that in a collective way? Because this is something that's universal right now. Yeah. Well, I think we tend to think of grief as, oh, I've lost a loved one, or I've lost something important to me. And there are a lot of nuances to that. Maybe you had a plan, something that you had in mind. Maybe you didn't even know you had this plan, but you wanted to accomplish something. You had imagined yourself, passing the, sixth grade, or having a Christmas celebration, or being able to see that friend, or whatever it was. There's so many ways grief can show up when we feel like we've lost an opportunity. We've lost the ability to plan something. It's about loss. And this is such a collective experience right now. You're right. This is a global experience. Everyone, I think, has lost something. Maybe we've lost a sense of certainty or safety or stillness in our lives. I'm sure we could all answer that differently. It will be really curious to see what research comes out about that, this like collective trauma experience. I think we're learning more about trauma, especially these last few years too. I think I've had a lot of people breaking the sick stuff. Yeah. Yeah. Still very much there for me our everyday. Yeah. But we just, it's so sick of talking about it. I can't do it anymore. Yeah. Yeah. I think so too. I feel that myself a lot of the time. Yeah, I want to bring it up because I took it to class through Leader-wise, where they had us do a tool. Yeah. A tool that helped you kind of get a
handle on, say,
Yeah.
where you, how your personal EQI was, and
Yeah.
in each of those categories that I think was the slide, how they included these categories in that slide.
Yep.
I just want to make a plug for that, because that's a really
Oh, wow.
line for the school named after somebody.
The emotion quotient inventory, the EQI. Yeah.
Yeah, anyway, but it's not.
Thanks, Kay.
There are those tools and that they're
Yeah.
really helpful. I know I thought
Do you want the microphone? Would that be helpful? Okay.
I thought I could predict how mine would turn out. And some of that was true, but some of it really wasn't. It was I'm pretty self-aware. So it was very insightful to me personally, and I just encourage people to do that. Because it might give you, like, where you think certain emotions are coming from for you. You might be right, and you might not.
Yeah.
And I think emotional intelligence is equally important, or even maybe probably more so honestly than cognitive.
Mm-hmm.
And it influences your cognitive intelligence, it influences all your relationships. And I think relationships is the abundance of life.
Yeah.
Or they are the abundance of life.
Mm-hmm.
So an emotional intelligence deeply impacts your relationship with yourself and others.
Yeah.
So that it's really where the goal line of life is.
Mm-hmm.
So I just, if talk to me or
Yeah.
sort of direct you to the school.
I'm so glad that was helpful for you. The comment was there's an inventory out there, and there's lots of these, but there's one specifically about emotional intelligence. So if you're interested in this, if this has been helpful for you or engaging, we do this kind of work at LeaderWise, and there's other people around who do this work. And what you do is it's about 20 minutes or so, you fill out a questionnaire, and then you have a debrief with a psychologist or a counselor, or there we go. It took a while to get to my resources, but a counselor or somebody who can help you understand maybe a little deeper what's going on for you, and tease it out a little bit. And I want to encourage you to just get support too. If you feel like talking about any of this stuff with someone else, talk with your pastor, a therapist, or a school counselor, maybe a youth leader, a parent, somebody you trust, who can help you kind of wrestle with these things a little more. And if you wanted to contact me, it's just danny@leaderwise.org, or you can check out other kind of workshops and services we have. We have counselors on staff. We have retreats and workshops that we lead for clergy and lay folks also. Yeah.
She said sometimes it's hard to share emotions because people ask, how are you? As a way of saying hello.
Yeah.
Not really allowing the time to feel it.
Mm-hmm. Did everyone hear that? Yeah, that's a great comment. It seems like there's a correct answer sometimes when people say, how are you doing? Oh, good. Good. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what would be different if we asked each other, how are you really doing? Or actually kind of paused and listened to the response. Mm-hmm. Yep, we'd see all those words pop up. Nice, thanks.
As you get older, you realize that these are people that you can trust, and they've heard it before.
Yeah.
You're not the first person to have these problems.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to tell kids this particularly, if you're stressed about something or really anxious and it's really affecting, physically and just really being able to be happy. The school counselor, just go to the nurse and just say, start somewhere. But because you don't want to tell your friends, they're going to think, we don't talk about stuff like that. And you don't want to tell your parents because they're going to be really worried about you.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe kind of just tell you to buck up and go do your homework. You're not sure what to do. You don't even know if there's something wrong with you. You just sort of don't feel like you're happy.
Mhm.
And so, so going with, you're in school and where do you go? You go to the counselor, I guess, maybe even
Yeah,
middle school, junior high, and they just ask people, you can go in, try it, and say, yeah, good.
yeah,
But they heard it, they heard all of it
nice.
before, so you're not hot. There's a lot of anxiety out there. This has just been proliferated.
Yeah. The comment was encouragement to seek somebody out. And there are confidential spaces like a counselor, therapist, where that's just between you two. Mhm. Okay, well, thanks, everyone. It's been a pleasure to talk with you all and grateful for this opportunity. So thanks. Take care.